Hey guys, Chung here. In this video, we are comparing two lights, which is the Aputure Lightstorm 600X Pro, comparing it with the GVM SD650B Pro. Both lights are around 600 watts. Both lights are bicolor. Both lights also have a head that is rainproof, and honestly, they are quite similar with a lot of things. However, the biggest difference is definitely the price, because the GVM costs around $848 while the Aputure costs $1,990. So it's literally double the price. So you could either go and buy two of the GVMs, or considering you could get a GVM and all kinds of other accessories and make it an even better light. So the main thing is, like, we have to see like the brightness tests we have, and also comparing and looking at certain things of the light itself. So let's first talk about the build quality. The build quality of the GVM is actually quite nice. It's metal build. It of course has also plastic pieces, but it has a strong yoke. Honestly, most of the things, it's well built. The only drawback I see is basically the Bowens mount. It does lock in accessories, however it doesn't lock it tightly. So like right now here we have the reflector of it. It's held in, but you can hear it's loose, so it will make sound under certain conditions. However, I haven't met like conditions yet that, like, if wind or anything that causes it to make sound. The other thing is the clamp for the Powerstation. It also is not a really snug fit. It is locked in securely, however it just isn't like a tight fit as the Aputure, that it actually holds it like steady without any movement. So those are the two minor build quality things, but overall, yeah, you have a yoke with a baby pin on the bottom. You have pretty much a lot of things are similar. Only other thing that is different is also the cables. So you do have like a plastic cable coupling on the back of the light, compared to the Aputure, which has a metal connection. And honestly, it's not really that big of a deal breaker. And also the cable length of the head to the Powerstation. This is on the GVM, the standard cable that you get with it is like 3 meters, and like with the Aputure side, you do get a much longer head cable of 7.5 meters, which is much more usable, especially because the head is rainproof, but the Powerstation aren't. So the Powerstation, you do have to place it in a dry location if it's raining, and the head can handle rain. Yeah, what is actually much more important to talk about is the power stations of the two. So the Powerstation has quite things that are similar. So both of them have a quite similar button. Both have V-mounts on the sides, so you can power it with V-mounts. However, the drawback with it on Aputure is that the maximum output you get is 50%. While with the GVM you can do like 100% output. However, in a real world situation, you don't often have like a situation where you would be using V-mounts, because this is a 600 watt light, so it's using 600 watts while your V-mount batteries are like 200 watts. You're still about like quite fast that you're gonna run out of power, especially at 100% output. Realistically, on film sets we'll be using generators, which are like fuel generators, or like much larger, like 1000 watt battery. If you only need it for a very short moment to do it 100%, then of course the GVM is a better deal with it. The other thing is, with the Aputure, you do have an additional bonus feature. So you have the feature of able to recharge your V-mount batteries with the Powerstation if you aren't outputting more than 70% of output. Personally, for me, it is an added bonus, because you can just get quite affordable V-mount chargers nowadays that are double chargers. So it's not really a must-have feature on a Light. However, it's just a bonus that it's there. And another thing looking at the Powerstation is really the startup time. Startup time with the Aputure is directly, so that's not really a big deal. However, with GVM, there is a 3-second delay, or if you press the on button, you have to wait 3 seconds till actually the light actually pops up. So that is not a extreme long wait, so it's not like a whole minute or like 10 seconds. So 3 seconds still doable, and it's honestly yeah, not an extreme long wait. And I'm talking about the Dails on the Powerstations. I do prefer the Dails on the GVM Powerstation more because you can dial it in much quicker, so it does feel the difference between moving slowly and moving fast, and it can actually cycle through the output or the Kelvin values much easily. Comparing it with the Aputure, I feel like you need to rotate quite a lot more. However, at Aputure you have like an added bonus feature of pressing the dials to jump specific presets. So there you can jump between like 10, 20, 30, 40, like those kind of outputs, or jump between 3200, 4400 and 5600 Kelvin values. So those are like easily quick settings, but with the GVM you can at least rotate it more naturally. It feels more natural to do it. And then in the menu of the GVM, when you start it up, you get a kind of a startup screen first, and then it actually goes into like a menu, and the menu is like CCT, source, and effects. CCT is basically your standard color temperature, and you can change the brightness and the Kelvin values. There is no tint values because it is only bicolor and not a full color. And you can go to source, where it's basically you can mimic certain source like tungsten, halogen, all kinds of different kind of lights with a specific kind of white balance or like a Kelvin value. And then you have, of course, the effects. So you have all kinds of effects of fireworks, candles, and all those kind of things. So basically everything, in the menu is there. And then you can go into the deeper settings. You have like the DMX settings. You have the settings for the fan. And you have also kind of few other settings that you more often won't really touch. The fan setting, I do feel like you need to explain for a lot of users. You can actually set the fan on both the Aputure and the GVM to high. So when you're outputting around 50 to 100%, you might actually notice that the light actually dims over a certain time. I've noticed that when I was doing the brightness test or lux test, that the light was just constantly going down and down and down until I turned the fan to high, and then it had like more of a constant value. So the downside, of course, with the fan on high, it's quite a audible noise. However, if you put it on smart settings, it can be quiet. So it's really dependable how you use the light. If you're putting the light outside the building that you're filming, shining in, and you basically won't hear the light, then you can put it on high. However, if you have the light indoors with the actors, you might want to just leave it on silent or on the smart modus, which also keep it quite silent. And then I have talked before, it has a DMX settings in the menu, but it doesn't have a built-in CRMX on the GVM, while the Aputure does have built-in CRMX, so you can use it in combination with the Sidus one. However, you can get like it to work with the Sidus one. So the main thing with the GVM, you then have to buy an DMX antenna, which is around $100 that you can connect to the DMX port of the GVM. then you basically can connect it with Sidus 1 to control also the GVM. However, it does have a downside that every time you pack it up or you put the light together, you also need to remember that you have to connect that antenna because it's a separate device that goes onto the DMX port. And now to the brightness test, which actually has a quite interesting result, because I've tested it without the reflector on purpose, because the reflectors focus the light to 1 meter, and that's where I put my measuring device, and that is not great if the light get focused to that point. So I've removed the reflector on both of them, because you can use the light with softboxes or other kinds of accessories, and basically you can use them on both of the lights, and then basically the reflector doesn't really matter in the test itself. So the main thing is, like, I've tested the lights on the brightness of 0.1%, 1%, 50% and 100%, and then on different Kelvin values. And it actually is quite interesting because, like, the main thing is, like, of course the 650B being 650 watt is a lot brighter than the 600 watt from Aputure, so that is pretty much a given. However, what did surprise me in the results is that the low end at 0.1% and 1% is a much different value on the GVM than on the Aputure. You might think the GVM would be brighter because it's a brighter light, but at the lower end, GVM is actually less brighter than the Aputure. So you get like much more usable values that you can use it indoors, especially at night with the GVM, compared to the Lightstorm 600X, which on certain occasions I have been on film sets where the 600 was just too bright indoors, and we had to like use scrims and all kinds of things to lessen the output of the 600 to make it actually usable, because we didn't have any other lights available. So the main thing is, like, the GVM have a much more larger usable range of lights, brightnesses to use than compared to the Aputure. So conclusion is the Aputure Lightstorm with double the price actually double the worth? I don't really feel like it, because you can buy things for the GVM and still be cheaper off with the GVM than buying the 600X from Aputure, because you can basically get the GVM plus the DMX antenna plus the Sidus 1, and also like the more extended 10-meter cable and few more accessories, and you're still cheaper off than buying the Lightstorm 600. So personally, yeah, if you are looking into like a very bright light, definitely this one is quite interesting, and especially the more usable light range makes it really much more interesting than the Aputure. So I hope you found this an interesting video, and if you want to see more, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.